Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of X Vlog Live. I am one of your hosts today, Mr. BoomStick XL, and I have my brother from another hanging out with me today. Now, normally we have, of course, C Money that joins me on Thursdays, but he is out in San Francisco covering GDC, so he'll be back next week. But I have one of the best TTSers that I know in podcasting, known as Crispy Bomb. Crispy, you've been pretty busy. Not only were you on Tuesday's show, Monday show, I should say, but you're here today. I don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow, but if so, we have a lot to get into. We have two topics, ladies and gentlemen, that are going to blow your wigs right off the top of your head. One of which is a lot of little Bethesda news that is going to encompass something that I talked about last week, and vindication appears to be coming Boom's way. And then on the back end, we're going to talk about GDC, but not just about what happened at GDC. We're going to be breaking down the four major reasons that Project Helix, Xbox's next generation console, has four distinct advantages over PlayStation. We're going to break all of that down. And I got news for you. If this hits like I think it's going to hit, PlayStation might be in a pickle, especially if they release 2 full years after this monstrosity of a hardware. But we'll get into it. Crispy, how you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Oh, good to be back on X Vlog. Yeah, you won't have me tomorrow. Don't worry, people. You don't have to hear me all week. So,
All right, that's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time. The stands, I feel like, are very nervous right now because there's actually a dev kit out there, which means you should just be calling it a console because you don't need a dev kit unless it's a console. So just saying, maybe just cut the BS, stop whining, because there's a few, and the chat probably knows these few people that just won't shut the heck up about the console thing. Like, will you just shut up? Like, there's a dev kit, end of discussion, let's move on. But yeah, we got a lot of games this year and next year and probably the year after that. We should be talking more about games, and guess what, PC players, you're welcome with us too. So yeah, we got some other topics to get into, but you know how I'm going to bring the smoke for the last one.
And it's going to be fun, folks. If you ever really wanted Boom to maybe kind of just poke his toe into the dark side of conversation, that's probably going to happen today. I again, listening to Dirt Griggity and the guys over at WBG, and of course the One Man Dark Man. Sometimes you learn a trick or two. And I'm an old dog, but this old dog learned a couple of new tricks. And we're going to be talking that shit, as they like to say over at WBG. And more specifically, they say TTS, which is fine. But look, everyone that tunes into the 5 syndicated shows that we do weekly here at Double Barrel Gaming know that I do my research. It's something that I really pride myself in doing, because opinions are just that. Everyone can have one. It could be different than mine. We could not agree, but we can always walk away like a gentleman. Now, some people choose to throw haymakers. Others choose to, just walk away with it. Either way, I like doing my research. I also like breadcrumbs. I also don't believe in coincidences. So the first story of today's podcast surrounds Bethesda. And it's a lot of little breadcrumbs, ladies and gentlemen, that do lead into what I believe. I know it's Thursday. I know tomorrow is Friday and there's the weekend. And it doesn't give you a lot of room before the 17th of March. But I have a strong suspicion, based on what I have in front of me, multiple stories that are going to basically come together like Voltron, and I'm going to say vindicated, because I had made the call a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, that not only did we hear, not just me, but we as a community heard that Xbox was considering doing a second dev direct before the June showcase. And that story was broken by no one other than Jez Corden of Windows Central. Now, that story is relatively old. I have to find it. I don't have it in front of me, but I will add it to the show notes if you want to read where this rumor came from. So let's start off with the first bit of news. And the first bit of news is the fact that ID Software, who of course works hand in hand with Bethesda, has just filed a new trademark for Quake. Now, that's just a small nugget. What does that actually mean, Crispy in chat? Well, not a whole lot, but that means at least there's a new trademark for a new Quake that has been rumored in development for years. That's number one. Now, here's number two. Pause. Pirate Nation, along with many others, and I believe Shinobi 602 posted this first, but I have Pirate Nation's tweet in front of me, posted something of great interest to anyone that has been waiting for something new or old from Fallout. Well, one of the things we've been banging a drum on here at Double Barrel Gaming is the fact that the Fallout 3 Remastered is not only real, we know for a fact it's in development. Now, we have heard, Crispy, that this game was, quote, far off. And I called hogwash then, and I call it hogwash now. And here's why. McFarlane, Todd McFarlane, I think you might know him. He's an incredible artist. He also makes toys, action figures, collectibles. That's just what Todd does. Well, thanks to some really good internet detectives, we have an official listing for Fallout 3 Remastered figures from Todd McFarlane Toys. Interestingly enough, other retailers have also listed it with a release between July and August of 2026. Now, some might suggest, well, boom, June showcase. This might be a really good spot for this. And you wouldn't be wrong for saying so. But this is where it gets super, super pointed and very, very interesting. We have a tweet here from Idle Sloth, who has been nothing short of a Superman in the last couple of weeks, putting out incredible news bombs and clips left, right, and center. Well, this one is very interesting, and it's got some dates, and that's where we put all of this together. So, according to Idle Sloth's official tweet on his account, reviewers, and I'm not one of them because I'd be under NDA, so I couldn't say what I'm about to say, but apparently there are reviewers, 1,931 of them currently, according to SteamDB, are playing the new build of Starfield this week, and the embargo for their playtime is going to lift on March 17th. Now, keep that date in your mind for a second as I continue. The date, that particular date, is towards the end of the month, a little past the halfway. Now, the rumor that started after Jez Corden's article was that we could get a direct this March. And if you remember, I said that I think it's going to be a Bethesda-led direct. And why? Because of Starfield. Well, check this out, folks. Not only does the embargo for people's play through the new non-2.0 version, just the updated Starfield, with whatever bells and whistles they're going to add to it. Interestingly enough, you know what else was found by these internet detectives? PlayStation 5 pre-orders go live on March 17th, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this, again, this comes the way of Jerdus of Reset Era. So shout out to the internet detective known as Jerdus. And he does a post and is accredited, apparently, thanks to Idle Sloth on Reset Era. Now, the 17th is happening next week. We have a new Quake trademark. We have the potential pre-order date for Starfield for PlayStation 5 starting on the 17th, the same specific day. The embargo lifts for anyone that is currently playing the updated version of Starfield. That's very coincidental. And of course, we had this leak where Todd McFarlane Toys has listed Fallout 3 Remake something, whether it be models, whether it be statues or toys. That is also, all three things could easily be put into a direct. Now, the direct itself is probably going to be Starfield related, and it's going to talk. Again, this is just speculation, folks. It's going to specifically break down what is exactly happening with Starfield. It's also going to let people know that, hey, as of today, you can go wish list and pre-order the PlayStation 5 version and PlayStation 5 Pro version of Starfield. That starts today. They could also talk about, and it's probably going to be leading the conversation of what the new expansion is, when it's going to be available, and what it's about. Crispy, again, this entire first topic is just a big old bowl of speculation. But I think that I honestly laid out why this could happen next week and everything that could be at this particular event. I want to get your thoughts, man.
I mean, it makes sense. You have a lot of breadcrumbs. We've been through this before. We've talked about Fallout 3 Remastered many times, but you know, those toy lines, I mean, they don't mess around. They really look at that and they say, you know, we want to be in line. We want to get out there as soon as this is announced or even ready to roll and comes out. You have, you know, they're trying to push up the Fallout TV show so that will possibly come out a little earlier this year if possible. I think they're trying to ride the hype train, as we like to call it. So you look at that, you look at Starfield. I mean, I'm just going to be curious because, you know, I'm slanderous of, you know, how they treat it when it comes to PlayStation 5 because, you know, they were pretty brutal on Starfield, you know, but mostly want to see something from them. I want them to entice me to say, hey, you need to jump back in and give this another shot. You know, we've heard some rumors about the Armada and the Earth things, and you know, maybe like building out Earth a little bit differently, maybe some time travel from speculation from some of you guys that completed these. So I look at that. I'm going to add one. I mean, you know, the Hugo Martin talking about Doom the Dark Ages, how large that DLC is going to be. You never know. They could want to show something of that coming. It does kind of line up to have a Bethesda show. Now, the 17th or not, I mean, that's St. Paddy's Day. I don't know how likely that would be, but you know, you would expect it may be an announcement on the 17th that, hey, this is going to happen. And then, you know, possibly maybe throw a little nugget of when Starfield's going to release on PlayStation. So you're not making that a part of the show. I think it's more logical. Just be like, hey, PlayStation, yeah, you want to tune into this, but yeah, it's coming. You know, you can start pre-orders now. You know, I think they're going to approach these shows a little different, and I hope it's more like, let's focus on Xbox, and the other stuff we could just kind of throw a tweet out there like a lot of these other companies do to us. Like, let's play some hardball too. You know, so that's, you know, my hopes, my speculation about it. But, you know, Bethesda, they have so much in the pipeline that you have stuff with indie still going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have Blade, you know, hey, they could tease us a little bit with that. There's so much that they have that, you know, hasn't really been said. And we know Todd has said many times, I don't like really talking about much until it's really close to coming out. And I feel like this is great timing. You could even like show some of the Doom DLC, but then also have a little splash of, hey, Quake, we're bringing it back and better than ever, or we have this idea, or, you know, I mean, you don't know. They could be thinking about remastering more games after Oblivion's, you know, success. So there's a lot of things going on at Bethesda, and I think we are definitely due for them to kind of puff their chest out and be like, hey, we're back, and here's Starfield. People can call it 2.0 or not. This is what we're bringing you. And that's like the main crux of the entire thing. And then you can have, going to different Bethesda studios and showing some stuff, have them even just doing a little more talking than usual. But we all agree that, the way they've approached it with showing gameplay and explanations at the same time has worked. And I think Bethesda loves doing that in general anyway. So I'm with you. I think there's something possibly within the next 30 days that could be coming. So that's my thoughts.
I mean, look, Xbox finds themselves in one of the best positions or situations that any publisher could want to be in, right? They have been the talk of the town since the beginning of the year for a multitude of reasons. Outside of this being the 25th anniversary of the platform, which we've been banging that drum since last year, they started off the year strong with their first direct. And I say first because they're going to have a second one. Now, honestly, you might be onto something with maybe it not being, put out on St. Patty's Day. But my pushback to that would be, St. Patrick's Day, big deal in this country. Absolutely a monster-sized deal. So many people, so many beautiful Irish people that I know are going to be celebrating it, and I love it. But gaming is always going to be around no matter what holiday it's in front of it or that lands on it. And this is going to be pre-recorded. This is going to be thrown up on the socials. It's going to be thrown up on YouTube. And it could be Todd Howard out there talking about the pre-orders going live for Starfield. I mean, they can even, incorporate it into, hey, we're celebrating St. Patrick's Day in the biggest way possible and go. Again, this is all speculation, folks. I'm just saying that it's odd. The 17th, the embargo lifts, and the pre-orders become live for PlayStation 5. You're going to want to talk about that. Even though it's St. Patrick's Day and people are going to be celebrating, that is true. But this is business. And I think that announcement, if it turns out to be a direct or not, because it might actually not be a full-on direct, which I'd be disappointed. It could be just a video thrown up on the socials. I actually don't think they should do that. I literally think that they should make this into a deal. Starfield's coming to PlayStation. That may mean nothing to you, Mr. Xbot, like me, Mr. Xbot, but it's going to mean a hell of a lot to PlayStation 5 owners who've been waiting almost 3 years for this game. And what I am really waiting for is all of the slander MFs that tried to trample this game when it came out as an exclusive for Xbox. I want to see what I'm hoping for is the receipt keepers to come out in full force. The Dirk Griggities, the Crispy Bombs. There are many receipt keepers out there. Joey, if you're in the chat, brother, shout out to you. Joey's a receipt keeper. And I want to see all of the slander that people gave this game. And if it turns out that this game gets reviewed better with all of the extra stuff that being added to it, I'm going to have a real stink eye for a lot of these YouTubers and content creators and people on X, because they took Starfield and ran it through the mud. And that game was dope. One of the best launched games ever that Bethesda has put out. You want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. It was like, it's still talked about. Like it's still like, they have any type of like now this news. I guarantee you go into that little, like Clobro, whoever posts it, and you're gonna see comments of people trashing it. I guarantee it. They can't understand that they're gonna look like hypocrites because it's a Bethesda game. Like it is absolutely a Bethesda game. I didn't have many, if at all, bugs. Okay, like there's a few little quirks that I feel like any open world RPG could definitely have. So you look at that and you say, okay, you guys just didn't have it and you refuse to play it on even PC. So now you're going to be like, oh, no. You know what I mean? I like it now. I mean, of course we're us receipt keepers are going to call it out. And if we call it out and you deny it, and then I go back and post it, you're just going to look even worse. So I
Yes.
caution these people to say, you know, you can't use everything they add and say, oh, this isn't still Starfield. You gotta be able to keep that energy and say, okay, well, now I actually played it. I'll take the L, and then you won't get the smoke. But other than that, you know, there's a lot of people that didn't play it at all and just absolutely trashed the heck out of it. And I hated it, and so did many of us that looked at it like, come on, dude, this is still an amazing game, and you guys are highlighting the stupidity of like, hey, like, remember the gas giant thing? Like, there were so many
That was so ridiculous. You can't land on a gas giant. This is outrageous.
And it just went crazy, and people are like, oh, you can't land like on No Man's Sky. Does No Man's Sky have half the things that you could do in Starfield on when you actually land? Like, come on. All right, let's be honest here. So every game has its ability, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what they're bringing, and I do hope it is in a showcase style. You know, if it's on St. Paddy's Day, I'm Irish, I approve. You know, I have a lot of Irish in me. I can approve for the Irish. All right, so there you go. But yeah, it's mad funny that these guys are obviously going to get caught out because they can't help themselves. I look at like tweets that just happened, and you know, like the console, this and that, and then all these other, they just keep going back and forth, moving the goalposts, and it's like if you take screenshots like me, not only do I remember as well, so I can go back and say, nah, you said that. And then I go and all I got to do is search in my receipts, as I like to call them, and, you know, search a keyword or something. And bam, I've got, you know, like on one person, I've got 80 tweets. And they're one of the ones that just argue about the console to PC thing. There's 80 of them. And he back and forth, denial, all the hoop jumping, you know, whatever you want to call it. It's like they're American Ninja Warrior, and just like, hey, all these obstacles, I am going to absolutely master them all. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, bro, like, I could absolutely just ruin your entire reputation of how many times you went back and forth. And I don't care if you could change your mind. Sure, you can, but then you go back to it again. So you're just like going back and forth. I'm telling you, it's going to be hilarious. And I'm okay with other people getting to play a game that clearly took time and effort and really got trashed. And I do hope that some of these people that just trashed it and didn't even play it at all really look back at themselves and say, you know what, this game, it actually is a great Bethesda game, and it really, I shouldn't have said that. And maybe some of them will be logical and take the L, but I don't see it for a lot of them.
No, what you're going to get, if I may be so bold, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn here, I think what you are going to get is, well, you know, you beta tested it, Xbox. Right, we got the best version on PlayStation 5 Pro. That's the goalpost moving you're gonna get. And listen, look, at the end of the day, I don't care. I played through it, I beat it. It's an incredible game. It's probably one of their best ever, to be honest with you. But look, this has been a phenomenal opening salvo. It has not officially been announced. I do think Bethesda will be doing a direct of some sorts next week. You know what? I'm probably wrong, but I don't mind putting myself out there because I presented my case to you. Now, if it turns out that all of these breadcrumbs go to a dead end, then I was straight up wrong, and I didn't read the cards right or didn't read the room correctly. But there's a lot that they could show there. You know, Crispy made mention of something that I forgot. They could show the Doom DLC. They can show the expansion for Starfield. They can obviously announce to the world that pre-orders are now live for the PS5 version of Starfield. And I think it's going to sell incredibly well. There's a lot of the stuff that we talked about that could be there. That would encompass exactly, again, they're going to use the Starfield angle. It's going to be a Starfield Direct. Hi, I'm Todd Howard. We're going to show you everything, all the new things that we have added to Starfield, and he's going to go into his spiel. And then he's going to go and he's going to talk about, I know you've been waiting since the last expansion. Well, today we can talk about what we're doing. It's the such and such armada. It's going to be a very big expansion. It's probably be as big as the game itself. It's coming out this time. And by the way, for all our PlayStation friends, you can now pre-order or wish list the game on PlayStation 5 Go. And they can add a couple of little bonuses in there. Is that how it's going to happen? Well, it sounds pretty good, to be honest with you. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but that's how I would do it if I worked for marketing. And again, you're selling an old new game with new stuff. You're telling everyone that has been waiting for the DLC, and you're going to welcome in a whole bunch of new fans that are going to get a Game of the Year edition of Starfield. And it's going to have all the bells and whistles from which they don't call it a 2.0. Not even Todd says, he's heard it because obviously he talked to Greg Miller. And Greg Miller was like, yeah, what about this 2.0? Yeah, we don't really call it that. It's just, it's some, quality of life stuff. Okay, that's great. Probably some flying out to the atmosphere, flying into the atmosphere. Maybe you can do that now. Who knows? But it's something people ask for. And again, you could really make a show out of this. It doesn't have to be 60 minutes. It doesn't even have to be 40 minutes. It could be a half an hour show led by the fact that Starfield is getting its update, right? It's getting a release date for its DLC happening later this year. And it also could be a useful tool to sell the game to PlayStation players. It's a win-win-win. I don't work for marketing. I think I'm a little bit older and too long in the tooth personally, but I continually check my LinkedIn just in case I get the call up to the big leagues, but we'll see. Anyway, I like what I do. It's fine. I like being retired. It's fine. But Crispy Bomb. This next topic is going to be a pinch slanderous. And I know Crispy is probably smiling already because, we normally don't do that here. But after yesterday's commentary by the names that we don't name on this show, I got to tell you, I've never I say this all the time, and I'm a bit facetious, but the goalpost moving that went on yesterday, Crispy, was on an epic level. For a multitude of reasons. Now, you made mention of something that we're going to kind of dig a little bit into. You happened to mention the word dev kits. Now, I don't know if it was on Tuesday or it was on Monday, but there was a pony in the chat. I think he wound up getting sniped, but not by me. Saying something, and again, even if I knew his name, I wouldn't say it publicly because you know how I feel about that. I never want to embarrass anybody. But I will tell you what the person did say. And his exact words were, if the next Xbox doesn't have a dev kit, it's a PC. Well, Crispy Bomb, was it confirmed that early next year, meaning January or February, that the dev kits for Project Helix will go out to all the developers? I think that was confirmed by Jason Ronald. That was one of the major highlights from yesterday. So I'm going to hand you the mic in a second, but I think you already said it, but I want you to elaborate on it. If it has a dev kit, that means it's a console. I think that's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, why would you need a dev kit? I mean, and this is not to say that these, you can't, that there's got to be tool sets there and a reason for that dev kit to exist. And it's not just, hey, you build it this way. They want it built for the Xbox part of it as well. And they want, if your games, this is why they keep reiterating, like, natively, these Xbox games will be on this console. Is it going to be able to play PC? Yes. You can technically get a dev mode on your Series X and go and do some of these things already. Okay. That's why I say, don't be surprised if all of a sudden they say, oh, we're going to start unlocking this to preview members. You know what I mean? Instead of having the actual dev mode, actually unlocking this to preview members, the requirement is you do have to have a Series X is probably what I'm thinking would happen. And that might push them to have some Series X, more of that stock out there. It's a console. Okay. They need a dev kit. It's okay, Stans. You should just take the L. Okay. Sit down, Let's see what this entails, how the devs actually react, because we know they like to talk about what Xbox is doing. There's always some kind of article coming out, either trashing or praising Game Pass. These devs will gladly tell us what they think. But from what I see from developers right now, there's an excitement because there's been a lot of words said that, haven't been confirmed or denied, that, it was quite difficult to do some of these things with the Xbox. So why not have this dev kit out there? They have laid out this entire, like, you've seen some of the shares from some of the people that are sitting in the room. Keep in mind, you don't just have devs there. They're taking feedback, in my opinion, from the Paris Lilies, the C Monies, that they're talking to them. They want to hear not just from, they want to hear from some journalists that have ideas and stuff like that. Some of the fans, some of the channel members, the YouTubers, they got a lot of different people that are involved. And you see, like, most of the devs aren't saying nothing because they're going to probably have more of the in-depth part of it that we're probably not even going to hear much about. And that's because it's probably under NDA or something like that. Obviously, they probably even said, hey, to, anybody that wants it, you're welcome to take a picture of this. That's what it seems like happened with this, everything they showed. Because if you really look at it, they're trying to lay out how they're trying to have this ease of use and this ability to build for multiple different devices without, ignoring the fact that, hey, like, we have this dev kit if you want to make it like the best looking game on Project Helix. And I think that's what it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of tool sets that we're going to hear about. We know they like them, smart delivery, all these other things. We want them to keep most of what they've used. Like, we want that just to continue. And it seems like that's what's going to happen. But you need this dev kit to unlock some of that. Maybe it's some of the AI stuff that seems like, it's going to get into what we're talking about with some of these older games. I think there might be like a overlay that happens, you know what I mean? And it builds out the game in a different way. You don't know what tools they're trying to mess with, because this is new territory for any console maker. And they are trying to push the narrative of saying, hey, like, we're doing something truly different compared to anybody else as far as console competition. And I think that's really what we're starting to see. And we're finally getting confirmation on their approach.
And dude, unbelievable delivery. Spot on. Now, I have, because folks, and I like to write these shows in advance. I have a listing of the highlights from yesterday. We're gonna get into that, and then we're gonna get into the 4 reasons why I believe PlayStation 6 will find itself at not just a disadvantage, a major disadvantage for next gen. But you know what? Let me catch up on the 2 super chats that are here, and then we'll get right back to the topic, folks. Mac2254 in the chat drops a very generous $5 super chat. He goes on to say, Crispy, they're not nervous, they're downright panicked. Hashtag Helix. Yeah, I mean, when you when you are a PlayStation gamer that, TTS the whole power thing, and found out the PlayStation 5 was going to come in, underpowered to the Series X, right? They felt the type of way. And then when the Pro came out and they did the mid-gen refresh, they were back on their high horse. Turns out that not only is there only a 3% difference in power, a lot of the games that use the PSSR or the PISR technology couldn't use it. It wasn't being used by devs for one reason or another. So all of that PISR tech turned out to be, all for naught. Now, granted, one of the newer releases in Resident Evil 9, they took advantage of it, and it actually looks really good. I see a lot of people, specifically Neo GameSpar, went out and bought a PlayStation 5 Pro because he's a big fan of Resident Evil, and he wanted to play it on the best place possible that wasn't PC, and he bought a Pro, and he's enjoying it. Nothing wrong with that. But look, we're going to get into power, with the power narrative, and we already know. I mean, they've said it. The PlayStation 6 is going to be underpowered as opposed to the Helix. We already know this to be true. Sony is trying their damnedest to sell you a $700 console. And I say 700, it might be 8, because when the Pro came out, it was $700. So I can't see the PS6 being cheaper than the Pro. I just can't in this world. We'll get into that. It's me, the broke boy, drops a very generous $2 super chat. It says, on the road to DC Comic-Con. Well, listen, on the road. I didn't know there was a DC Comic-Con. That's pretty interesting. I got news for you. I mean, if you're a fan of what James Gunn was, and I say was going to do, there is a rumor floating that after the Paramount deal, he might walk away from WB altogether. I don't know if he comes back to Marvel, he does his own thing, but supposedly he is not a big fan of leadership over at Paramount, and they might actually be resetting the DCEU again. They'll never go back to Schneider, which I thought was the best DC, but we'll certainly see. But Crispy Bomb, let's circle the wagons and get right back to the big key announcements from GDC, more specifically from Jason Ronald, who led the Xbox keynote at GDC. Now, Project Helix, of course, was front and center. Now, we didn't see it, which I would have loved to see it, but I think many people that know what they're talking about basically came out and said that this is not a show for us. I mean, we're all excited for it because we're getting information, but it's for developers. So showing off the actual console would have not made a lot of sense. Now, I would have loved it to be able to slap a official, this is what the Helix looks like on a thumbnail. But I have a good imagination, and I use Grok and a few other things to make up these mock consoles. But Project Helix, Xbox's next generation console. Well, it was confirmed as the next generation Xbox designed to bridge console and PC, allowing games to run seamlessly across both ecosystems. It will feature a custom AMD silicon with massive advancements in ray tracing and new AI-powered path tracing tools. Now, I think that they're really going to go to town on the fact that this thing is going to have AI. How much, Crispy? I don't know, but let me continue. It was confirmed by Jason Ronald that in 2027, early 2027, development kit releases to who? The developers who are going to be making games for this thing. While it was teased before, physical development kits for Project Helix will now reach developers in early of 2027. That's a really big deal. So if you're wondering about the time and whether or not they actually can have the console out by the time that the holiday happens, don't worry about it, because I believe that the Series X dev kits went out in April of 2020, and of course the console launched that November. So if they follow protocol and it's March, April, the console itself can still release in holiday, which is probably going to release in November of next year. I did not see this one coming, but it does bridge the gap between Windows and Xbox, and they announced the Xbox mode for Windows 11. This is rolling out next month. This feature brings console-like full-screen, console-optimized UI to PC, aimed on improving game performance by reducing background processes. That's one of the biggest complaints with Windows. It's front-loaded with a lot of stuff, a lot of bloat, as it's been known. And supposedly, this update is going to remove a lot of that bloat, which is great. They confirmed a unified gaming feature. Microsoft is pushing a unified game development kit called the GDK to allow developers to build games that run on PC and next generation Xbox at the same time. So before, when you were developing a game, this explanation comes the way of Kay Asante, who explained this to me. You would have to push a button. to, for your Xbox mode, to make it for, we're developing for PC, push this button and you can make now you can make it the game for Xbox. Well, supposedly this unified gaming feature is going to do it across the board automatically. And I don't know if that's AI or not, because I'm not that technical, but making what I think it ultimately does is remove the excuse of a game being made for PC, for PlayStation 5, for Switch, and not Xbox. I think that this new way of developing games completely removes any excuse whatsoever, unless you yourself were either paid by Sony to keep this off of Xbox, or you just don't want to put it on Xbox. Because again, Xbox is PC, PC is Xbox. So I think the amount of games not hitting the console that we've seen a lot of people complain about is going to shrink. Now, do I think it's going to be every game? No, but it's certainly going to be a lot smaller circle. Lastly, well, no, it's not actually lastly, because there's one here that I'm saving for the end. And I'm excited for this. But the next one is Advanced Technology Focus. Project Helix will feature a next-gen AI-powered upscaling called FSR, neural texture compression, and next-generation neural rendering. Now, that's a lot of tech talk that I don't know a whole bunch of, but I did see the presentation from Jason Ronald. I've actually watched it twice. I watched an unofficial one, and then I watched one from Xbox Era, no longer Xbox Era, Day One, formerly known as Xbox Era, and it was really good. But this is the last one, Crispy, and this one has me very excited. They went into great depth about backwards compatibility. And I have a story in front of me written by Brendan Lowry of WindowsCentral.com, and it says this, Crispy: rejoice! Microsoft's Xbox backwards compatibility program is coming back this year. And it has a quote: "We're committed to keeping games from our 4 generations of Xbox playable." And that statement alone destroys, like you like to call them, all the stands that said you couldn't play all your Xbox games. Because guess what? It has been confirmed, ladies and gentlemen, that every Xbox game is going to be playable on this next generation console. 4 generations of Xbox games. Now, of course, you're going to get some people, Crispy, that say, well, why do you want to play old games? I don't know about you. I like playing old games. And we're going to get that. Again, they made mention that not only is it happening this year, but there's going to be new ways to play these old games, and that they've kept a secret. They haven't said exactly what that was. So that secret alone has me very excited, because that means that we could get games like Singularity. We could get games like the Transformer games, or a multitude of the Marvel games. Like, for instance, Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 running at 120 frames, looking gorgeous, and it's a game that's been locked away for years, right? We could get Prototype, right? We've been hearing that it might be a Prototype remake in development, but if there's not, we can certainly go back and play the old one, which I would gladly do, running in gorgeous 120 frames per second with all the bells and whistles that this thing is going to be able to do. I want to get your thoughts on some of the announcements from yesterday, and what jumps off the page for you, Crispy?
That last topic. I mean, it's something that, well, if you really think about it, I know, and I'm sure like PC gamers, you're either going to correct me or not, but I see a lot of them say, like, for game preservation, like the PC has been so important within our lives. Like it has had the ability, like, sometimes I go down YouTube rabbit holes. I'm watching people still playing Roller Coaster Tycoon and stuff like that, like stuff that, I would love to, have that option to maybe boot it back up on the good old console again, or something like that, or have even the opportunity to play some of these games that, could get a new coat of paint, the way all that lovely technical talk you said at the end there, that was, it's going to be broken down over time. They're going to obviously, spill the beans on what they mean, but it seems like because there's going to be such integration between PC and Xbox now, that maybe some of these games might have the opportunity to be utilized again and stuff like that. There's something there that they're holding back, and I almost feel like it's because they don't necessarily want maybe even the competition to know what they've been working on. It seems a little secretive. That said, I think they've I mean, because you really look at it like they're doing a little too much wordplay lately. Like what does neural rendering really mean? Like people, they're going to be technical talks about this stuff. You're going to see Digital Foundry, like going over some of this stuff. I would assume, whether you take them with a grain of salt or not, they do know their stuff. So we'll see what the conversation start attributing to. You're going to probably see one of them or somebody like Austin Evans or somebody else probably get their hands on it like they did before a little earlier, so people get the breakdown of the technical prowess of some of these things. I did want to make a point that the thought process of these devs getting these dev kits, keep in mind that I'm pretty sure like all the studios, because you saw in the dev direct at Playground, they had that covered. I mean, it's obvious with that black felt that the Xbox game studios are going to have this far longer and are going to be able to put out all of these games as gloriously as they possibly can, because they've probably had it for longer than we even realize. So I truly believe, because there's so many games that we have, like you don't even need to launch with some third party or something that's going to be great. Obviously, maybe let's get that over to Rockstar a little faster, maybe let them play with these new tools that they haven't necessarily don't have, and certain third parties I think might get a little priority to getting this, because obviously they have to still manufacture this and stuff like that. So they probably have a good idea of how well it's going to work for them after letting Playground play with those tools. And you don't know what we're actually going to see when these games get updated for this thing as well. So it's definitely an interesting time. There's still a lot of nuance that we want more info on, but I also think they held some of it back for some of these we'll just say publications that play nice, hopefully, that will say, hey, like this is also information that I'm now allowed to share. I mean, you see Jez Gordon or somebody like that come out with an article down the road, because I feel like they're trying to keep the momentum going. And like I always say, don't step on any rakes. Just keep going. That's all you got to do. You know what I mean? If they just keep going and they prove of why even somebody like myself, who's always like thought about maybe getting a PC myself, and then prices go crazy and all these things. So I basically say, nah, it's not going to happen, because like I see something like people playing an old game that I love, like Roller Coaster Tycoon, and I'm like, oh, if I had a PC, I could actually mess around with that. You know what I mean? But the option now, and now you like take a step back and you're like, man, this Helix thing, I might never have to need a or even want a PC. And in realism, like it's probably going to be more cost effective, and I get to play all my Xbox games on there. It's starting to like you kind of look at it side-eyed, like if you're a PC gamer that like we always like to say, that's not in the high end spectrum, even like my stepson has a 4080. If you're not at least that high, you might be looking at this and saying, man, this looks pretty cool. And it'll also be probably a little easier if you wanted to like bring it somewhere or something, like simple things like that. All of a sudden you're like, man, this could be something really special. And I'm just excited to be in this time once again where we're saying like console innovation is starting to happen, because it felt so stagnant for so long. And I think, regardless of exclusives and all these other things, just looking at the landscape in general, Xbox is pushing a new type of gaming experience that really is agnostic, and it gives you the ability to just use whatever you want. But in realism, I think they really want you to understand that the Helix experience is going to be just a great way to experience video games. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to, as I like to say, be undeniable.
And listen, they're doing. First of all, they're saying all the right things. I think that just GDC, the presentation yesterday, I think did more answering of questions than generating new ones. I mean, we have to see the thing in practice. We have to see how powerful it's going to be. We have to see how these AI tools are going to make gaming better for us. We have to see ultimately what the final form of the UI to rule them all looks like. Of course, there are several unanswered questions, but we have a path. The path ahead or the path forward for next generation is looking brighter than ever. And we're going to get into the final topic of today's show momentarily, but let me just make sure that I'm caught up on all super chats. Yeah, we're caught up there. So, ladies and gentlemen, Crispy Bomb, chat, anyone that's going to check this out on the replay or in one of the videos that I put together, I'm going to pose a question, but this where this topic originally came from was from Paris Lilly. Now, I've already said his name twice. I say it one more time, he's going to show up for sure. I don't know because he's still in GDC, but Paris put out a tweet, and it's very, very simplistic. It's non-console war. It sounds like an excited fan. That's ultimately what it is. He plays on PlayStation, plays on PC, probably has a Switch too, but we know that he likes Xbox. Well, he wrote this: the next generation of Xbox, and he puts 4 points of contention here: console, handheld, accessories, and incredible games. So I read that and I said, I like what he's putting down, but I want to be a little bit of an asshole. And I think that I'm going to say, listen, I don't normally curse, but that's where this is going, ladies and gentlemen. And if you were waited for the TTS moment for Boom, well, this is it. Because I've always cautioned on being a nice guy, and I've sat back and I've watched and I've listened how a lot of the ponies continually beat down the Xbox brand. And I think everyone that continues to say that they're panicked, you're not wrong. Because if we just go back to the start of this year, Crispy, what has people been talking about with Sony? Well, there's not really a lot. I mean, yeah, Wolverine is going to come out. It's one of my most anticipated games of the year. It's coming out in September, right? I'm going to be there day one. I hope there's some sort of a collector's edition with a statue because I love Logan as a character. So I'm a big fan of Insomniac. But outside of that, Soros and MLB, which is a standardized, yearly release, they don't really have a lot going on, right? Now there's been some talk of a lawsuit from the other side of the pond about the way that they do their business, which I always thought was egregious at best when it comes to their store. Their return policy is the worst in gaming. When you start talking about the future of PlayStation, outside of there being a PlayStation 5 Pro and some games looking potentially a little bit better than on the Series X, there's not much to talk about. Their future is incredibly bleak. We don't know when there's a PlayStation 6. The rumor is 2029, and it could last even further. They could be 2030. I think that Xbox Helix is going to have a minimum of 2 years on the PlayStation 6. And that's a really big deal because we saw what happened when they had a year on PlayStation 3. Now, PlayStation 3, just for the fact that it was out for sale longer than the Xbox 360, is why it was able to actually pass the 360 in regards to sales. But who won that generation? Clearly, it was the Xbox 360. There's not even an argument to be had. They had the best exclusives. They had the best third-party deals, which were exclusive, like BioShock, like Mass Effect, like so many others. And they did rule the roost. And granted, it hasn't been that way since. You go back to 2013, and it was really some really terrible corpse speak that just destroyed them. All the momentum they had going into the next generation of the Xbox One was killed by good old Donnie D, but they still managed to continue to sell consoles, and I know that they've sold a lot less than years before in this generation, but they're still over 40 million based on the numbers that we were able to find. Some people say it's over 45 million. I'll take the low ball over here and say it's over 40. But Crispy, the question that I pose to you, the question that I pose to the chat is, why does Project Helix have an advantage over PlayStation 6 for the next generation? And I have an answer for you, folks. And PlayStation players are not going to like it. So first, we're going to talk power. The PlayStation 6 is going to be underpowered compared to this box. And if it has a 2-year jump on it, I would imagine that when the PlayStation 6 is going to come out, potentially in 2029 or 2030, there could be a mid-gen refresh for this thing of Project Helix. Now, I'm not saying that they will be, but there certainly could be, because it's going to be basically a console that looks and acts like a PC, but it also looks and acts like a console. It's going to be the best of both worlds. So could there be, just in the nick of time of the release of the PlayStation 6, another version, a more powerful version of this? Yes. Interestingly enough, the console sale thing that PlayStation players have been holding over Xbox players for years, with their near 100 million console PS5 sold, it's not going to matter anymore, because by that time, Crispy, OEMs are going to be a part of the sales for Xbox. So you're going to have consoles made by Microsoft. You're going to have consoles made by Lenovo and Dell and Razer and Alienware. Everyone's going to be a part of it. So every sale that any of these companies make, it's going to be considered an Xbox console sale, because, well, it's, even though it's an OEM, it's still an Xbox, right? So that narrative out the window. And what do they have? The power crown. They are holding the power crown. So let's continue. More than power, let's talk about first-party games. How many games do you know are coming out before 2029 for PlayStation, Crispy? 4, 5, maybe, right? We know they have we know that they have a new God of War with Kratos' wife coming out at some point that they've been working on for a while. Intergalactic is another one. That's coming the way of Naughty Dog, right? This year, again, Soros. The game looks great. I just think it's going to sell as much as the first one. And if that is 700,000 copies, I don't know if that cuts the mustard for PlayStation. Wolverine, I think Wolverine's going to be a big seller. I think based on what Marvel has lined up this year with Doomsday and Brand New Day and a bunch of stuff that's coming the way of Disney Plus, like season 2 for the X-Men, season 2 for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I think all of that is going to bring the hype to Wolverine, and the game is going to sell well. Insomniac games are incredible. I know there's going to be some pushbacks and people don't like them. I hear you, folks, but you're not going to get me to cross that bridge. I really do like Insomniac as a developer, and I really do love their stories. They're different than the comics. They take risks that I didn't think any non-Marvel studio would take, and they've done it. So I'm very much looking forward to that game. But outside of the games I mentioned, what is their first-party outlook? It's very bleak, in my opinion. Now, could they have some secret sauce there? Sure, but most of their studios are all coming off canceled games that Jim Ryan set up as their gas game future. Ben's studio, what are they working on? I have no idea. Pick your favorite PlayStation studio. Outside of the two bigs that I mentioned, Sony Santa Monica and Naughty Dog, who else is making games? But if you turn the page and you look at what Xbox is doing, not only does Xbox have new hardware releasing next year, not only do they have the best effing lineup in games history releasing this year, Gears, Forza, Halo, Fable, new Call of Duty. That's just the start of it. Add Kiln to the conversation. A little title, sure, an indie-esque title, but I think that game is going to hit big time. We haven't even gotten to the fact that Clockwork Revolution could release this year. And if Clockwork holds the pattern of not releasing this year, that's next year. And what do we got next year? A ton, an F ton of games. And of course, you still have a new Fallout. They're working on several Fallouts for that matter. You have Elder Scrolls. You have a follow up to Indiana Jones. You have a State of Decay 3 potentially coming out next year. You have a new Wolfenstein, supposedly another Doom. We can just keep going and going and going. So if we're talking power, that's checkbox for Project Helix. We want to talk about games, checkbox Xbox Game Studios, right? That's just 2 of the 4. Crispy, I'm going to get to the other 2, but I want to just get your thoughts on the 2 most important things when it comes to games and consoles. It's power and it's first-party output, and Xbox has both in spades for next generation. Let's get your thoughts, man.
Yeah, it's quite funny that, we always look and we say, Stans, you always talking at both sides of your mouth. And you always say, power. Well, for the people that had a Series X, we knew that the OG PS5 was not as powerful. We knew that. That said, did every game take advantage of the Series X? No. And I think this, the way they're going to do development from here on out is going to be less likely that it's going to happen, especially when it comes to the Helix. You have an opportunity to say, okay, now, because the funny thing is that the stands have went back to, it's going to come out 27, 28. And they're the same stands that said, I think we should wait. Sony should not put this out right now. They should wait until 29 or 28 at minimum. And I'm like, okay, which one is it? Because you guys are saying, this, and then, that. So whatever the rumor is at this point, who the heck knows what Sony's thinking, because you have a problem. You don't have a bunch of games because you canceled them. And you canceled them because you thought, 1 game or 2 games that were similar were put out there and it didn't work. All right. Because that's the only way I can look at it. Concord really messed up the way Sony was thinking about doing stuff. Like when you cancel a clear, easy win in Twisted Metal, you got problems. And what now they canceled what? Until Dawn or something, a remake, or like the games that deserve remakes that aren't just like a few years old, but are actually like 10 plus years old. They refuse to do it. And it boggles my mind, because these are IPs that are beloved and they just say, no, we're done. We're never going to touch it again. They've basically acted like these IPs don't exist anymore, which is it's plain sad in my opinion. And then you look at Xbox and you're like, oh man, they got great games coming out. They got the big 4, if you want to call them that. You got games like, you didn't even mention Blade. You know what I mean? Like you got all these games, different genres, different development cycles, as far as like how much money they need to build it out, like a Kiln. Like you're going to see other titles like a Kiln in different ways. You've got partnerships like Replaced is coming out. They are constantly doing things that are different. Like it's not just one style of game, and that's what I think we love, and that's why we also love Game Pass, because something that I may not have thought of playing, I see some people having fun with it, and I say, man, that's cool. And that's where I go and say that the power thing, it's just going to be a part of it. It's just, it is what it is. And then the OEM can downscale or upscale that power. But the Xbox Helix is going to be, or Fusion. People are starting to run with that, by the way. Xbox Fusion, shout out to Umbra, you know what I mean? But you're doing that and you're saying, okay, like this is the box of all boxes. And if you want something less, I think it's going to be an OEM, or who knows if they're going to approach the handheld and say, okay, the ROG style device is good enough. We're willing to let them do that, or they're going to say, no, we got an idea for something really special when it comes to a handheld, and maybe have it, possibly dockable like a Switch or something. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know their thought process, because we've seen, like Keystone, that was canceled, the little dongle thing, because they probably were like, oh, Amazon, you can back end this, and we can add it to Fire Stick. Why would we even do that? There's probably certain situations where, yeah, the money hats are going to win, and they're going to say, oh, we could just partner with somebody and they can approach it the way we really want to anyway. We want Game Pass as many places. Here we go, Fire Stick. There are certain things that they do R&D, and then you get, halfway through it and you're like, I don't know. But clearly this PC console experience, they are going full bore and they are ready to roll. And maybe Sony does, go to 2930 and does try to match the power. And I'm gonna let you get to your next point before, because I think we're on the same page with this.
Listen, I've said this before and I've said it again. The PlayStation 6 is going to be just a more powerful PlayStation 5. Now, is that enough? Well, I mean, look, I've already said it, that if they turn around and they don't pull away from PC, I'll be buying PlayStation games for the Project Helix, and I will not be buying a PlayStation 6. Now, again, the rumor is that they supposedly have pulled away from launching games, moving forward onto PC. That has not been confirmed by Sony. That is a conversation that comes the way of Jason Schreier report. Now, I understand that he does do his due diligence to get that information, but that doesn't mean he's always right. He could very well be wrong. We don't know until Sony comes out and officially announces that the plan is their games will be on PlayStation 5 and 6, and eventually at some point or another come to PC, unless they move away from that. Now, the reason why I say I don't think that's going to happen is because they like money, and there was a report that came out that they made $2.4 billion from PC and Xbox sales of their games. Who is going to make up that money? Is it the ponies? They don't freaking buy games, man. They just don't. I'm sorry. There is less than 4% of gamers that buy one game per month. All of these numbers about how game sales go on console, more specifically PS5, are all legit Circana numbers. No one's making this up or shooting from the hip. Most players on PlayStation play or buy less than 2 games per year. What are those 2 games? Usually it's a Call of Duty, an NBA 2K. It's usually a WWE when that's out. Obviously, this year it's going to be Grand Theft Auto 6. But most people are playing free-to-play games because it's the cool system. It's the popular system, which is why they've sold so many. Those are normies that are buying these consoles. The normies only buy a couple of games a year if you're lucky. Most of them are playing free-to-play games. So I don't know how Sony's going to make up that $2.5 billion, but it's not going to be on the backs of the ponies, because they don't freaking buy games. They talk about games. They play Twitter, but they certainly don't actually play games. Do you know how we know that? Because all of their trophies are hidden. You can't see what they're doing. You can see what I'm doing. You can see how many platinums I have. I have 4 in my career. Not a lot, because I don't spend a lot of time on that. But I have nearly 600K gamer score, which I hopefully will have 1 million by the end of this year. Because I play games. I buy a lot of games. And that's proven, because you see how many games I play. Those aren't given to me. I buy every one of those. But, Crispy, a couple of other advantages that they have, and you made mention of it. It's Game Pass Ultimate. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is a god tier level service. The amount of games that you got this year alone, if you just want to say, hey, where are we for the 12th of March in 2026, the amount of games, which now includes Cyberpunk, which was just added the other day, has been incredible. And we haven't even gotten to first party, dude. Right? Now, here's one advantage that was reported upon by Jez Corden of Windows Central. And this next box, according to Jez's, what he wrote, they could remove this is a big one. They could remove the paywall for online play. Do you know how devastating that's going to be to PlayStation? So let me line this up for you stands out there that are going to write something stupid in the chat. And I don't think you can argue this. Xbox is going to hold the power crown. Xbox is going to have the best first-party games, and maybe some games still go over to PlayStation. I actually think with new leadership, that's going to change a bit. Now, I'm not saying they're going full-on exclusive, but I actually think the same way that it was announced that Soros, Wolverine, and a Ghost of Yotai were pulled from releasing on PC, you could see the same thing happen with Fable. Oh, we just decided that we're not going to release it this year. We're just releasing it on PC and Xbox. If you want it, you play here, right? Gears of War would be one of the ones that I do. No, you're not getting Gears. Sorry. Like, and I say that in jest a little bit, but I also harken back to what Asha said. She said, return to the roots of Xbox. Well, the roots of Xbox are exclusives. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm just spitballing here. But she mentioned also Renegade. You want to be a Renegade? You walk back putting certain games on that box. I don't care how much money you lose. Because based on some of the sales, and look, I'm going to be honest with you. If I was running Xbox, and let's be real, I would never do that. And I don't have the skills to do it. I'm just being facetious. But I told you from inception, I'd run it like Peter Moore. That's how I'd roll it. And the first game that I would pull back from would be Forza Horizon 6. We're not releasing it this year. Well, when you're releasing it, we don't know. You want to play it on Xbox, play it on PC. We're not talking PS5. That's what I would do. Are they going to do that? It's highly unlikely because it's going to make a mint on PlayStation 5. There's no doubt about it. It might be the best-selling game on PlayStation 5 this year. And I'm saying that even though Wolverine is coming out. That's how big of a deal Forza 6 in Japan going on PlayStation 5. But I would pull it back. I'd be like, you know what? We're not doing that this year. We'll talk about it maybe next year. And when that and you drop the mic, you let the media keep talking about your box. Oh, breaking news, Xbox Forza Horizon 6 not coming to PS5. You know how big of a story that would be? That's how you drop it on the table. Pause. Okay? So
that goes
those two
that goes right with my tweet. That goes right with my tweet about how much they would lose their minds if I'll just do every game that Xbox Game Studios, ABK, Bethesda, even some of the third parties that would be money had it and go, 1 year timed exclusive like they used to do with stuff. Remember the whole Tomb Raider thing? Oh, that was fun, right? And then it's okay when Sony does stuff like this, right? So imagine if they pulled every game, including Call of Duty, all of them, and said, nope, it's only on Xbox and PC. Guess what? PC's there too. We're not technically just, saying, oh, nobody else can have it. It's on PC as well. So guess what, PC players? Now you're talking about exclusive games, compared to any other console. And then you say, hey, Xbox, we're cool with you, It would just be funny how the entire gaming landscape, the journalists, all of them would absolutely lose their minds.
Yes.
They'd be trying to go and go to, you know, Elizabeth Warren and all these politicians and be like, you need to stop this. They were right, blah, blah, blah. Like, we know what's going to happen. So it would never happen in that way. But I do believe it would be nice for them to say, you know what, Fable, we're not ready to release that on PlayStation, but don't worry, Xbox, PC, you're getting it. We'll talk about PlayStation later. And then eventually maybe it works out the way they want, and it's 6 months down the road or a year, and they say, you know what, we've gotten a little bit of console sale momentum, stuff like that. We're just going to say that our games at minimum will be a year exclusive. Some games may never go to PlayStation, and just leave it at that. And you know, you could just say 1 year at minimum, but there are some games that we may never release. And I mean, you look at Starfield, it's been what, almost 3 years. So
this September would have been a full 3 years.
That's fine. And I'm okay with, see, that's the thing. Like, I get it, stands, like, but you had plenty of games that you could still release on Xbox that you've already played. You've already probably played 5 times, because that's all you really get is these one-hit wonders. And then you're like, okay, well, now what do I do? Okay, let me go back to Fortnite or play Call of Duty. Why do you think you guys bought so many Forza Horizon 5? It's probably way higher than 5 million now, because I guarantee the hype is starting to gain because Horizon 6 coming out. And I'm sure they're going to be like, 5, here's a really good sale price on it very shortly. So it's a strategy. And I think, you know, Xbox needs to be more mindful of these new, or at least new takes on even old IP, and say, if it's a brand new game, we don't know when we're going to have it on PlayStation. If it's a remake, like Gears Reloaded, like people think, oh, we got Gears. You don't have 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't have so many games from Halo. Like, if they wanted to just give you Halo, just remaster MCC or something, like, you just have the first one coming. Like, I'm okay with these things. These games are 20 years old. Like, I am fine with that, but they need to be a little more mindful about giving that, like Gears E-Day. I will be adamant, because I want 2 and 3 to be remade. Now, I don't know if this whole AI and how they're going to do these old games will destroy that. I truly believe and hope that's not the case, because I think 2 and 3 should be completely remade in UE5. They are the 2 games that people will argue with till no end as the greatest in the Gears franchise. So I do not want them to have E-Day. I think they could, if you want to do something nice, you say 2 and 3 are coming out, 2 and 3 Reloaded, Gears E-Day. We don't know when that's coming, because you just, here you go. Here you got to learn Gears before you get E-Day, like, type thing, you know. But that's me being petty. I'm with you. They got to do something logical and be like, you just don't do, hey, right now it's there, because you have PC. You know, this is the whole point of the Helix. You're befriending the PC audience. You're saying, hey, you're a part of this too. Well, what better way than saying, oh no, PlayStation, you don't get it, but hey, PC gamers, you're with us now. So, you know, if you want to buy a Helix, like, you get the best of both worlds. Like, these are the opportunity of innovation, which is another point of Xbox having an advantage right now. They have the innovation to be able to say, you know what? We're going to include one of the largest gaming base, maybe besides mobile. We could say mobile might be more, but, you know, that we're going to include them in our talk about, you know, being a part of our ecosystem. And, you know, after Sony going and, you know, whatever controlled leak, maybe it's false, you know, to Jason Schreier, you go and say, hey, now you're a PC gamer, like, hey, like, you know, if you released Wolverine over here, you know, day 1 or even a couple months after, 3 months or something, we would probably buy a lot of it. But when you release it years later, like, we really don't care at that point. Or, you know, we might have a PlayStation 5. We might have already played it. So why are we going to buy it again? And then, you know, we have all of these things, you know, Play Anywhere, all these things that include the PC gamer, the 900 million, as I like to say, on the low end. You know, that's a lot of people. And I think a great way would be like, hey, like, PC gamers, you're, you know, we say, you know, only on Xbox or timed on Xbox, that includes you. And I think they're quietly trying to do that while walking back some of the narratives that completely eliminated anybody thinking about a console as well.
Look, I see a lot of talk in the chat about don't stop talking about exclusivity. It's never coming back. Look, I said this before and I will say it again. What is in front of Asha and the newly formed Xbox team is a daunting task. I don't work in marketing, so I have literally no idea how they would walk back exclusivity, whether that be full exclusivity or timed. I honestly don't know. What I can say definitively, and this is a report that not only came the way of Windows Central, but it comes from Charlie Intel. And again, this is a story we're going to be talking about tomorrow because it's big news. And it goes to show you the seismic shift that's happening at Xbox regarding its messaging. And again, folks, this is just a pinch of what we're talking about tomorrow. As reported by Charlie Intel, Xbox, the corporation, has deleted all references to "This is an Xbox" ad campaign from its Xbox website. Do you understand? By doing that, it admits defeat, that it was a mistake. They know it was a mistake. And I said this the other day. I don't think you get Satya Nadella to show up at a private Xbox town hall Q&A with staffers in an Xbox hoodie if he doesn't realize that they made mistakes putting games everywhere. And what did they do with this is an Xbox program? They devalued the console. Now, I, of course, was like, well, that's not, I mean, I actually thought some of the work that they did was, some people were like, oh, it's cringy. I thought it was kind of good cringe. I thought everything being an Xbox made sense because you can play your game anywhere. And now you really can't play your games anywhere because people are jumping on. We learned that through the GDC conference yesterday that there are over 1,500 games that are Xbox Play Anywhere, and they continue to add to that list. And one of the big ones of 2026 is Crimson Desert that releases next week. That's Play Anywhere. That's a freaking big deal. So not only will I be able to play on my console, I'll be able to play on my Xbox Series. Well, it's not my Series X, but my Xbox ROG Ally X, and that's pretty dope. How much of it I'm going to play on the handheld, I don't know, but I'm certainly going to give it a try. And if I can enjoy it just as much as I am playing on the console, you bet your ass I'm going to play it there. But that's a really, really big get. But this is just the start. I mean, think about that for a second. Again, we will go into more detail and read verbatim from the article from Windows Central tomorrow. But they have removed everything that says this is an Xbox from their ad campaign that cost them millions of dollars, by the way. That's been wiped clean. So if they're willing to walk back this big ad campaign that cost the company millions of dollars, you don't think in order to get people to get excited about, a game, that you don't think they would walk something back like Forza or Fable? Fable doesn't have a release date, right? I mean, we know that's coming out at the end of the year, but the same way, some of the games that were announced for PC, for PlayStation, those were walked back, supposedly, based on a report. I think Xbox could do the same thing. They never announced a specific date or release for Gears E-Day. They could walk that back. We're not doing it. Now, we know Halo's coming. Yeah, all right, fine. Halo's coming. All right. But they could walk back. I mean, somebody in the chat, I don't, again, no names here. Like, well, boom, all of those games are coming to PlayStation 5. But what if they're not? What if the Renegade Xbox comes back and they realize that they hurt the brand themselves? They stepped on a bunch of rakes. A lot of like big time Xbox users walked away from the brand. Some people went absolutely mental because of the no names. We're not going to get into that, but a lot of real Xbox enthusiasts walked away from the brand. That was Xbox's fault for that. Now they are under new management. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't know what to expect, and I don't think anyone does. I think they're going to do some different things. And when you walk back, this is an Xbox ad campaign, and completely wipe it clean like it would never existed, that is proof positive that they realize they made a mistake. Now, they may not, Crispy, they may not publicly admit that mistake, but I think they are by wiping this thing clean. That's a big deal, and that's being reported by everybody. I didn't just pull it out of a hat. That is literally being reported.
And I think, and I think you have to realize, like, they're not saying like, hey, this isn't gonna, like, you don't need to tell people now any of this anymore. Like,
right.
Anybody that's in the know or is a part of Game Pass knows that they have the ability to even play on their phone. Like, you don't need to devalue the console by you yourself just like not even acting like it exists. And I think that's at least what it seems like they're looking at now. Like, hey, we don't need to, rub it in people's faces that you can play these games all over the place. We just need to, focus on the console and, let everybody else, understand already that, your PC, you can play Xbox games. Now, can you play them all? No. And I think that's something that, I think they're going to, at least it seems like they're going to start pushing forward. Like, hey, like, you not only get to play on PC, but you can also play all of your Xbox games. And this is our entire thought process and how we're doing this console. And this is why you need this console. And I think by them saying, this is an Xbox, we're just going to stop saying that and remove it all, says, okay, like, this is the reason why you want this console. And I think even in what we've seen so far from GDC, it has shown that is the forefront now. That is their conclusion to their maybe experiment, is that it didn't work the way they want. Even people have been laughing about some of the games multi-plat that went on PlayStation that haven't even sold 1 million. Okay. Yeah. So you are honestly arguing the point of the same point that you argue for PlayStation not putting on PC. Well, we were putting these games day one over there and you guys still didn't buy them. I mean, Doom the Dark Ages, of all of them, I was very surprised at how people are acting like it basically sold nothing over there. Obviously, it sold something, but it's an interesting question now of was it even viable to do so? And could they just wait until the time is right and say, okay, now you can have some of these games? Yeah. It's just a thought process. We're not saying that full on, like I just said, the internet would lose their minds if Xbox said, nope, you guys on any other device besides PC and those, mobile and all these other things, anywhere else, you don't get nothing. The internet would absolutely lose it. So we know that's not the case. So the people in the chat, we know it's not going to be like this full on exclusive. It would be probably the worst PR they could ask for, because you'd have people screaming to regulators at that point. So just understand what we're saying is that they want to value this console, and they need to show people that are, the naysayers, the ones that are fair, but are the naysayers, that, hey, this is the reason why you want to get Helix. And I think they're starting to show that.
Yeah. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us here. I hope that you had as much fun as I did. And look, the truth of the matter is that the future for Xbox is incredibly bright. We're getting games, and more games this year. We're getting a new console next year. We could get another handheld because, Jason Ronald did mention handheld. Now, it may not be an official Xbox handheld next year, but what could release in tandem with Project Helix could be an updated ROG Ally, whatever you want to call it. It could look like the console, and it could work in tandem with it. It could be dockable for all we know. It could be a smaller version, the S version of Helix, but at that point, we know it's going to be incredibly powerful. As a handheld, it could have a whole docking thing, because that was a rumor also. So even though it may or may not come true for next year, what we do know is this year has a killer lineup of games. We know that Xbox Game Pass continues to feed us to the point where we literally have not enough time in the day to play the games that they're adding. I mean, did you know that Planet of Lana 2 just dropped Shadow dropped into the. I forgot all about that game. I'm playing it right now. I cannot wait to get back to it. But again, Crispy, great stuff all around. We'll miss you tomorrow, but we're going to be getting, obviously you'll be back next week at some point. Sell the brand, brother. Where can people, check you out on the socials and get a side order of receipts? And more importantly, what else you got going on, brother?
At Chris Bomb on X, and yeah, you'll find me sometime next week on Boom's channel, and we'll see you then. I'm sure there's gonna be news bombs dropping all the time. It seems like maybe we'll have one next week as well. So yeah, we'll see you then.
We very much could. Real quick, we have Sith Lord who drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Extra read all about it. Old man likes old games." Yeah, I know. Shocking. I know. I like old games. But DJ Birdo DOS drops a very generous $10 super chat. So DJ, great to see you here, brother, and thank you for the generosity. He says, "While I'm all for war, I'm against it. Let the games go to PlayStation as announced. That would be like what Game Science did with Wukong. That wasn't cool. For future titles, if they pull back, I'm okay with it." Now, you're not wrong. Look, what I suggested is incredibly unlikely to happen. But if you wanted to make a splash, you wanted to really get the journos talking, right? They're going to talk shit no matter what. We've said this before. Xbox could cure cancer tomorrow. And instead of congratulating at Microsoft and Xbox for doing it, you'd get, "What took you so long?" That's what you would get. They'd spin it in a negative way. Any Xbox news, grand, small, or otherwise, is turned into fodder for current games media. Games media, not all of them. There are several really great sites that continue to do really great work. But a large percentage of journos from the stock of journalists nowadays, they chase clicks and they use console war rhetoric to sell their brand. That's what they do. If it's PlayStation, it's an excuse. It's accepted. We don't talk about them. Like you don't talk about Bruno. But if it's Xbox, it's double, triple, quadruple down on what we can do to shit on this brand to make people hate it even more. That's the truth. I don't think I'm one step out of line of exactly how journalism is, especially gaming journalism in 2026 and beyond. Sure, you have Xbox era, you have Windows Central, not Xbox era, day one. You have pure Xbox, you have VGC. There are several really, really good journalists and sites that still do the work. But for the most part, sorry, man, they go out of their way to dump on the box. And it doesn't matter how great a game is, it's something but, or it's because of this but. It's always going to be a but when it comes to Xbox. And I don't think I'm being facetious one single bit. But look, we got another super chat that popped in here. Day Reezy. Oh, I love this. He says, after dropping a very generous $2 super chat, PlayStation is dead. Yeah, I know Xbox is still dying. I know it's always going to be dead, but that's interesting. I don't know if it'd ever be dead. Sony could pack up shop and it wouldn't be dead. Like, well, they have games and it's old games and whatever. It wouldn't even matter. It doesn't matter. It's just a joke at this point. But Crispy Bomb, thanks so much for joining me, brother. Chat, thank you so much for tuning in and checking out the show. Of course, I'll be cutting down some of the commentary and the topics into smaller, bite-sized, more listenable, smaller shows. So check that out. Those will be going up. In the process of cutting up last night's show. Again, it's a lot of extra work, but I don't mind doing it because I'm learning a lot of video production and I'm really enjoying learning all this new stuff. Because like they say, usually old dogs aren't taught new tricks. I'm learning a bunch of them. So I'm happy to do that. But ladies and gentlemen, big thank you to all of these super chats, channel member chats, gifted subs that continue to come in. Hopefully you enjoyed today's conversation enough to hit the like button. We are getting really close to 17K, and you can help us get there by simply subscribing. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. He'd say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of X Vlog Live.